Hey everybody, so today I'm going to cover the hips and pelvis, and this one I'm just going to talk completely off the cuff about. Um, Another common issue that comes into the clinic, and it can also be people with a lot of foot and knee issues, is their problems are actually coming from the hips and pelvis. So one thing I've noticed is a lot of people are asking me to explain, oh, can you tell me what the shoulders mean or what the hips mean, or targeting different body parts. And for me, that could be the fifth or the 10th thing down the line that's starting to play up because the primary issue is not being addressed or acknowledged. And so the hips and pelvis, lower back, that's where a lot of stuff can stem from. However, hips and pelvis lie in your what's called your sacral chakra. So you've got your base, which is all through your feet and your bum, and then sacral chakra is all that pelvic bowl. And this houses emotions around relationships in life. And so I often talk about relationships with your parents, with your partner, your children. So this can be a desire to have children or the current kids that you have. And it can also have to do with relationships with workmates, so that environment you put yourself in and how much you enjoy being around the people that you work with, as well as your relationship to yourself and also to money. So more on relationship to yourself is how much do you listen to your body, follow your intuition, follow through with your ideas, back yourself and support yourself, but also externally with all those other relationships, is because the pelvis, the sacral chakra, is where we get our desires, where we get all of our creativity. That's where it starts to flow. And the follow through of that is how much we support ourselves, but how much we feel supported by other people around us. So it can be quite typical with family members that they feel like, oh, you should just take the safe route and don't actually pursue that desire that you have. And then relationship with money, which is always quite an interesting one when I take people through, well, how much do you want to earn? How much do you need to earn to support yourself? Is they have a lot of difficulty actually putting a figure on that. What's the other thing that comes up around hips and pelvis? So if we look at the hip joint, the joints relate a lot to what's called our solar plexus, which is just around the gut, and it's a lot around your identity. But when we're looking at sacral area and the hips, it's all about your ability to move forwards freely in the direction that you want to go to. I also will often break up the left and the right side. So left side, hip and pelvis, feminine. So can also have to do with issues with females in your life. Right side, masculine, can have a lot to do with issues with males in your life. So the hip joint is about how freely do you move forwards into your new ventures, into your new ideas, or do you hold yourself back? So particularly with issues front of the hip. If we start looking at inner thigh area as well and underneath the pelvic bowl, this area has a lot to do with sexuality. A lot of stuff can come up around birth trauma for people, but also another thing that does come up is history of abuse as well. So it is quite a vulnerable area, just the area that it's in, but quite sensitive because it also has to do a lot with relationships in life and how we relate to ourselves and how supported we feel. And I guess the shadow side of this is guilt. So particularly around guilt for having those desires or pursuing what it is you really want. So that's a little summary on hips and pelvis. I probably need to break that down separately into their own two little parts, but hopefully that helps those of you who have got some issues around that area to bring light to it. Thanks.